when we look over at some of the things that we saw today, some of the recurring things for me, as I've incorporated this company's way of doing things into my brain, right? The things that truly impressed me were the scalability, right? The fact that we can, within the limits of physics, we can scale to meet the needs of pretty much any customer, right? We literally have a few of the largest companies in the world as customers that are using us to back up hundreds of thousands of systems. And those of you that know a little bit about the history of the company, as Jaspreet mentioned, certainly our history was originally in laptops. And then when we made the cloud pivot several years ago, it was a cloud pivot still to back up laptops. And to that, we added SaaS services. And then a few years ago, we started adding the data center workloads. And we use that, again, that source dedupe, properly architected source dedupe to be able to back those up. And we definitely focused on VMware as our core focus there. We have added Hyper-V as a coming along behind. We're definitely stronger in VMware than we are in Hyper-V. But we're still working on that and making that better. But I will be honest that when I looked at our new DR, which came out about 4 or 5, 6 months ago, I don't remember exactly how long ago, that was one I definitely got seriously excited because there are basically two choices in the rest of the industry. If you want an RPO and an RTO of seconds, you have essentially one choice, and that's replication. There are a couple of different vendors that provide that, and I have nothing bad to say about them. If you need an RPO and RTO of 0, go to one of those companies. They will serve you fine, okay? But until a few months ago, the next choice was an RTO of many hours, right? That was you went from 0 to 4+ hours for even a medium-sized VM, and that when we would run AWS import on a large VM, it might take a day, like 24 hours or more. So that was your next choice. Well, now we have something that's a lot closer to 0 than 4 hours, an RTO of minutes, right? So, and yes, when again, I've been on your side of the table. The first thing you guys were like, oh, if I did this for 1,000 VMs, this would really, this would be difficult. Yes, I agree, and we'll make that better. But built into the product, the idea that you can select as many VMs as you want, select their recovery order, select what happens to them, make sure if you want to run any scripts to either start something or make sure that something was started, right? Put in time delays, and then all of that you can kick that off anytime you want, right? So we basically the use of the DRAS feature is it's an extra cost to your license, but every time you run a DR there's no additional cost. So you can test it as many times as you would like. There will be costs on your end because you're in a VPC in AWS, right? But I think that because we create that EBS volume and then take an EBS snapshot, it's the cheapest way to store something that's almost ready to go that we could come up with. And yes, I like your idea that maybe as an option, maybe in the future we have a checkbox that says don't delete the volume, just keep it because I'm made of money.
Well, a subset of my application requires a 5 to 15 minute RTO, and I'm prepared to pay outlandish amounts of money for that RTO.
No, I think it's a great idea. Yeah, and I don't know why you didn't think of that before, Nav.
We're all available to consult on your product.
Right, absolutely. But I think that's a truly impressive because the one thing about the guys that are faster than us is they are really, really expensive compared to what we do. So we're way less expensive and closer to them than all of our competitors, right? And definitely less expensive than what they're doing as well. We talked about What else we talked about the APIs, and I definitely think that's one where up until recently we were missing the boat. Would that be the right? Yeah, we weren't doing what we needed to do. We need to. Who's my PowerShell the things guy? Isn't that you? Yeah, he's right over there. Yeah, so we know that our competitors definitely excelled in that, and it's an area where we know we need to make better, and all of that is right solely on the shoulders of Prasanna, my podcast co-host. And then one other thing, I'll just throw out, and this has got to be the weirdest presentation, but I'll mention something else that our competitors do that we don't yet do, and that is this thing called live mount. Because of the way we do things, our way of bringing a VM up very quickly is what you just heard, the DRAS option. Because they have an on-prem appliance, they can do live mount, right? This idea of pulling up a VM quickly for various reasons. One of those reasons is often single file recovery, right? One thing we didn't mention is we can do single file recovery without doing that. So we back up the VM one time, we can do a VM recovery, VMDK recovery, or single file recovery, all with the single backup. We don't have to do live mount to do that. But there are other reasons that you want to do live mount. We know it's a cool thing. We're looking into it. That's really all I can say. Okay, so what other questions? I know you guys have got some.
I think more than a question. I think I quite like the fact, the technology that Druva is built upon. The model of having DynamoDB and the storage options, why it makes cost effective and also scalable in that sense. Multiple copies of data. But I think one of the other things that actually surprised me, and I think is a very strong point,
I hope it's a good surprise.
It is.
Okay.
And I think it should be talked about more, is that, when you're restoring things from one region to another, and the cost, the egress costs that are included, and the customer doesn't have to pay for it.
Right. You literally have one bill, which is the number of gigabytes per month done.
Exactly.
Right? No egress, which all of our competitors have egress charges because they run in your account.
And that's a huge benefit that, you need to talk about more, I think, because that's a hidden cost that people don't take into account.
Yeah. And it's fine as long as you don't ever restore anything. Right?
Of course. Right. But the thing is that if you're taking a backup, you should really be restoring it as well at the time, and testing if you can actually do that or not, which I know Alice doubles nobody ever does that.
And I know we mentioned that we support VMware Cloud on AWS, and we can restore from vCenter to VMware Cloud on AWS and vice versa. We can go back and forth for workload mobility. We can't yet, as you said, we can't yet do DR not the way we just described. We can't yet do that into VMC. Obviously, we're looking at that.
What worries me about the current state of DR for VMware solution is the absence of failback.
Which is coming next month. Okay.
But also the fact that there would be a double conversion of VM format from on-prem to AWS and vice versa.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because the conversion, we don't use the C word here, because we're not converting it. We're injecting, or whatever the opposite of injecting, drivers. We're literally taking a VMDK and putting the right, and again, none of us here I don't think has the details, because we have someone else that does that, but we are literally just putting things in so that the VMDK runs as an AMI, and when we need to make it not an AMI, we take those things out. It's really kind of awesome.
Okay, looking forward to see it.
As am I. The failback, yeah. Yeah.
Another point I wanted to make, because of that, automation that I was talking about, one other idea that I discussed before as well with someone was that it's not just about DR. So for example, that automation, that in a way blueprinting, if you do that source environment, you can also do things like, creating this instant lab by restoring it. But again, that's a use case. There's an instant lab. Many companies wants to do that, do a quick test and then shut it back down or destroy it. And if you have that blueprinting automatically extracted out of that particular app,
Yep.
then you can do that very quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know, via a click of a button.
Yeah, and what may also happen is you do the DR, and then you're like, wow, we really like it up here. We'd like to stay in the cloud, which is why another part of our product can easily clone whatever's happening to whatever region you want your system to run in. And also, maybe you can't recover quickly enough, and so, meaning whatever the reason you declared the disaster hasn't been fixed yet, and so you need to stay up here a few days, a few weeks. Well, while you're up there, we're still backing you up, right? Because we're still using our native capabilities to protect you up in AWS. And let me talk about another elephant in the room. The answer is no, we do not yet have native support for Azure or GCP. We know they exist. We are well aware they exist. We can support any VM anywhere, right? So anywhere that a VM exists, we can load our Phoenix client. Again, the beauty of source dedupe is that we can back up a VM anywhere. What we can't yet do are things other than VMs inside Azure or other places, right? And I will just speak to that just for a moment. One thing when I first heard that is, oh, well, then you're going to get egress charges for backing up your VM, right? Are you with me? Okay. So let's just talk about that for a minute. Because in my opinion, the only way to properly back up a VM that is resident in the cloud will create egress charges every single time. Why? Because, does everybody know cloud spaces? I'm sorry, code spaces? Google the story, not right now, but there's a story about a company called Code Spaces, which was a space to store your code in the cloud in AWS. They backed up all their stuff within the same account. They got hacked. They basically give us money or we kill you. They didn't give them money and they deleted them. Deleted the entire company, all their backups, everything, all in the same account in Amazon. They also didn't have two-factor authentication turned on. But had they properly backed up that instance to some other account within Amazon, they would have been able to recover, but they also would have gotten egress charges. So I don't really see the fact that we have to back up VMs that way as a ding against us, but we definitely know that we need to do more in Azure and GCP, thank you. And there are other clouds out there as well, but we don't do it yet.
The other point over there is in any other the other point over there is in any other SaaS provider, I don't care where SFDC backs up my data and keeps it. I don't care about where Dropbox or Box backs up my files and keeps my file, right? All I want to care about is the access to it and how easy it is for me to get it. That's how we treat our backup product, where a customer should not, beyond knowing that it's in AWS, should not really care about where it's in the backend, whether it's Azure, GCP, or AWS. Just that it's there. It's not in your environment. So if something bad happens, your entire environment gets wiped off. Your backups are there and available for it.
That's definitely another. I say the same thing. I'm like, some people go, well, you guys all run in AWS. Have you ever thought of running in Azure? Right? Well, one thing I will say, Azure doesn't have DynamoDB. I'm just going to throw that out there. We played around in Azure for a while. They don't have DynamoDB. But I agree with him. Why do you care where we are? As long as we work, our magic sauce works. And, we even have companies that are retail customers that hate Amazon, I'm sure, and they still give us money because our stuff works.